Hey everybody, Jeff Marr from Elizabeth School District, and joining me is Superintendent Dan Snowberger for our monthly superintendent review. Thank you for joining
Oh,
us.
thank you. Always excited.
This is what we do. We look ahead to the next month, and we also summarize some of the key events from the previous month. So we're doing January and February, and actually the last time you saw us was out at the state capitol, which we're going to get into in just a minute. But summarizing the year so far, one of the big events was, of course, just the fact that we returned to school. We started a new semester after a nice break, and everybody's back.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's always an exciting time of the year, kind of a fresh start for students to start new classes at the high school in particular. But really just it's been great seeing our teachers just again jump right back in and focused on the learning that needs to happen. We're preparing for some testing, which we'll talk about momentarily, but obviously we really want to take advantage of this time with getting our kids the content that they need for each grade level and content area.
And it wasn't long before we launched into Wish Week.
Yep.
Our Wish kid, Broderick, his wish was to go to Disney World. And I know you can speak to this being in education for so long. And for me, for the time I've been in it, it's one of my favorite times of the year when
Absolutely.
Wish Week happens because you see the whole community come together for a good cause.
Yeah, and I can't praise the high school and the student council team enough for this annual event they do every year. Every year they identify a family and make that child's dreams come true, which is really what it's all about. And so the assembly at the high school, the events that occurred, the fundraising that took place was just amazing. And it really gives our kids a chance to learn that, doing things for others is important and recognizing that there are others who may need more help than we do ourselves. So great chance to kind of wipe away any selfishness and have students recognize how important it is to help each other. So I'm really proud of them and excited for Broderick. Obviously, that's going to be a great experience for him.
And thank you to everybody who took part, who volunteered, who played a part in that fundraising effort, because I know that we did reach our goal and the tally is still being made, but it's going to be enough to send Broderick to Disney World, which is awesome. We also wanted to talk about Elizabeth School District in January making an appearance at the state capitol. As you saw, we did a monthly review on location for that, and it's because we were there for School Choice Week. Superintendent Snowberger spoke at that event to a crowd on the west steps of the Capitol, and then the EHS concert band gave a great performance, two different performances at this event, and it was a real highlight.
We're so lucky to have such an amazing band. Carson Powell, all of our band teachers do a great job. Carson in particular at the high school with her concert band and her marching band, but showcase them at a school choice week. I think we often forget that our public schools are choices too. We really want our schools to be the schools that community members choose to serve their children, and that's why we wanted to participate. There's lots of great charter schools, lots of great private schools, lots of great homeschool programs, but there are also great traditional schools. And we were really honored to be a part of that and to recognize that, to bring that to the forefront, that we really want all schools to be successful. And the competition really creates that environment. It causes parents to recognize that I don't have to bring my child to the school, but I want to because they're meeting the needs of my student. And so we have one charter school. Legacy has been a charter school in the district for over 20 years. We're excited to have another charter school starting next year that'll help us with the growth that we anticipate over the next several years. Eventually, there'll be an Independence next year starting at Frontier. But really just to recognize, again, our focus is on parents. We want you and your child to explore the options and find the right fit for them. And so we were so honored to be a part of that state celebration.
Did it feel good to do that speech and interact with the crowd?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think, we're providing transportation to students anywhere in Elizabeth that they want to go. We provide transportation now to Legacy students. We don't want burden of getting your child to school to be in the way of your choosing the right school. And so that's really important to us, and as not only as a district but as a board, to make sure that families have the support they need to get their child to the right school. We're proud of our homeschool programs we work on with Legacy, AeroLab. We have 2 homeschool programs in the district, again, for families who choose that as their option. We want to make sure that we're helping every parent find the right educational choice.
And we're looking forward to doing that event again next year at the state capitol.
Yeah.
So now we're going to talk about February events. And this is something that has been talked about at some school board meetings, but we definitely wanted to dive in more with this because the school district is launching a reading initiative. And just to give you some background, 40% of students in Colorado achieve proficiency in reading. That is a very low number. Our school district outperforms the state in that area at a score of 45%. But as the superintendent pointed out in a recent memo, it's not really something to celebrate. And so we're going to be doing some things to improve the reading scores here.
Yeah, well, 45% of our families can celebrate, 55% can't, and that's not acceptable. And so, reading is challenging, and obviously children bring lots of challenges to the table, and decoding and breaking the code of reading. It's not an easy process for children, especially who might have dyslexia, who might have other learning disabilities that impact them. So to say we're going to improve that without really changing our tools and changing what we have available in our district would be, doing the same thing and expecting different results. So we're excited about our dyslexia initiative that we've started this year. That'll expand next year. We're training staff here in our district to become certified academic language therapists, bringing a program called Take Flight into our district, which is a very systemic, very therapeutic approach to reading for students who dyslexia is getting in their way. Jeff, they say 1 in 5 kids have some form of dyslexia, and some of that's minor, and our regular instruction works for them. Some children are so severely impacted by their dyslexia that the breaking the code is just different. It's different than you and I when we learn to read. We see letters a certain way. Children with dyslexia see something very different, and it doesn't always make sense to them. And so our dyslexia initiative is key to being able to set some higher expectations. And in public school, there's a lot of research about retention not being successful for students. It's not what we're promoting. We're not saying let's retain everyone, but we are saying we need to have some expectations. Moving children out of elementary school, not being able to read, is really setting them up for failure. When you get into middle school and you get into high school, being able to read and gain that information from what you're reading is so essential. And to think that we can send a child out of elementary school not reading and think that somehow they're going to be successful. Our secondary teachers are amazing, but they didn't go to school to learn and to teach children how to read. Our elementary student teachers did. And so we really want to make sure that moving forward, we have the right tools at our elementary school, we have the right time devoted, we have the right interventions, we have the right remediation programs like Take Flight to really make sure that students, when they leave 5th grade, have solid reading ability. And for some students, it might take some more time, and that's what we'll be working with families. We want to make sure we have some summer programs coming up for extended learning and reading. We want to make sure we have some after-school supports where appropriate. We want to make sure that we build our toolbox so that children are successful leaving elementary school. I want that 45% number to be 65 in the next year and 85 the following year. And granted, you're always going to have some children who might need some additional support even in the middle school, but we got to get them closer. 2 or 3 years below grade level is just not okay. Students who are operating a half a year behind, those students we can support in the classroom. But when you're 2 to 3 grade levels below in reading, again, we're just asking, we're setting students up for success, and that's not okay.
Yeah, you don't want students being pushed through who are not ready for that next level.
Yeah, research is very clear that children who leave elementary school not reading at grade level have a 4, 5, 6 times more likelihood of not being successful in the rest of their K-12 education. And that's unacceptable. So we're going to be turning some things upside down. We've got an amazing team of teachers. Not that they've done anything wrong. They've worked their tail off, but we haven't had all the tools in our toolbox to meet the needs of students. And that's what we're adding to make sure that we can support our teachers in the classroom, have students who are ready for what they're presenting. And so we're excited about it.
It's a great initiative, and we're looking forward to seeing the scores improve in the coming years. And speaking of scores, I wanted to touch on the importance of CMAS testing, because that's coming up in April. And you've probably seen in my Good News Bulletin, I've been putting out some reminders to parents about the importance of that. And we just wanted to reinforce
Yeah.
that the results of this are important to give the district guidance on how to move forward.
Absolutely. And again, no test is the end all be all. So please don't hear me say that CMAS is the most important thing ever. It is an important opportunity for us to gain some additional insight on students and their performance, the areas that they're struggling, the areas that we need to improve curricularly. And so that CMAS testing is valuable in multiple fronts.
Mm-hmm.
But the reality is we've seen across the state and across the nation parents opting their children out of testing. And granted, I think in the past it's been so harped on as this is like the end all be all. And parents have said, I don't need that pressure on my kid. We don't want that pressure on kids. We want kids to know that any test is a chance to show us what you know. And we all have good days and bad days. So no test is that critical. But a combination of tests and a combination of performance tasks really give us a true knowledge of what students know and are able to do. And so we really want to encourage that we start shifting away from that opt-out and encourage parents to think about the fact that their children will take tests in the future. They're going to have to take a test to get their driver's license. If they want to be a doctor or a lawyer, you fill in the blank on the professional future, they're going to have to pass a test. And for
Right.
that to be their first test, when these are low-stake tests that give them a chance to learn that I'm timed. I have so much time to respond. If I need additional time, that's normally an accommodation built in, but that it's one more chance for children to show us what they know. And so we'd like that test data to be more helpful, not only to you as parents, but also to our district in making sure we're making effective decisions around our programming, around our curriculum. If we find students consistently are not mastering a certain skill, makes us look internally to say, okay, how are we teaching that and what's
Right.
the opportunity? So I do encourage parents to think about that. Again, parents have the right to opt out. We're never going to take that away from parents. But we hope that you'll think about whether this isn't an experience that requires that. So we appreciate your consideration.
Okay. And look for continued communication from me on that issue. So the last thing we want to touch on is something that we have put some communication out about, and that is the legal case update regarding the ACLU and NAACP filing a federal complaint against the school district right before Christmas. And we've really limited a lot of our communications on this because we've allowed for the legal process and our legal team to handle this in the background. But you're probably going to be seeing more of this in the news in the coming weeks because this could end up being a pretty significant case. And so we wanted to touch on whatever
Yeah.
updates you have with that case.
Yeah, our filings are definitely going to be how we're going to respond. And so obviously the more we talk, the more we say things off the cuff, the more we muddy the waters. And so our filings are on our website. We actually have a web page where anything that we file with the courts, our responses to the complaints, those types of things are there. Definitely want parents who want to know what's happening to be able to look at those. That's how we are going to speak through those filings. We've got an amazing team of attorneys. Really comes down to, do school districts have a right and a responsibility to curate curriculum and library books and materials that are in our schools to ensure that they are appropriate for students? That's really the root of this case. There's lots of political spin and a lot of different directions. That's the root we see is, do school districts, do duly elected school boards have a right to hear from their community and make decisions on what should and should not be in our schools? And that's what's occurred here. And we really need, ultimately, sadly, this isn't settled law. One of our attorneys has a case in Texas that is, he's been successful in winning. This could create a split in the courts, and when that occurs, it means that the Supreme Court has to get involved. So it's not that we set out for this, but obviously we're going to make sure that we get some settling on this question, because obviously we believe school boards across the nation should have that responsibility of knowing what's in their schools, what's available to students, does it support the learning. Everything in our school is about our curriculum program, about our educational program. It's to support our curriculum. And that's really our position on this. Again, we know there are people in our community who feel otherwise, or people who get caught on book bans, which this is not one of, but really want to make sure that the root of the case is, do school districts and school boards elected by the community have that responsibility to curate and to make sure that materials that exist in their schools are effective.
Right. So we will continue to communicate updates about that case as it goes along when it's deemed appropriate. As Dan talked about, there's a web page that I will continue to populate with anything public that comes out of the courts related to that case. Now, as for the Superintendent Monthly Review, we will be back in March to give you another update. Any closing thoughts?
Yeah, I do want to remind people, I've been doing my superintendent forums. I
Yeah.
didn't have one in January with everything going on, but February 19th, the Wednesday, February 19th from 6 o'clock to 7:30 here in this boardroom that we're filming in today at 634 South Albert Street here in Elizabeth. Invite parents to come, open dialogue. I don't come with the dog and pony show. I come with really the intent to hear and listen and talk through concerns and ideas that you might have. So hope you'll join me February 19th, Wednesday at 6 o'clock here in the boardroom.
Sounds like a plan. Dan, thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Always enjoy this.
And be sure to follow us on social media, all of the Elizabeth School District pages, and our website as well, elizabethschooldistrict.org, and we will see you next time.
Thank you.